Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we dig into the darkest corners of the Fallout universe. Today, we're covering every single cryptid across the entire Fallout franchise. Every creature from folklore and legend that the Wasteland has made real. You've heard the stories. The Mothman watching from the darkness, the Wendigos screaming in the caves, the ghost people shuffling through toxic clouds, the tunnelers breeding beneath your feet. But hearing stories and understanding the full scope of what's out there are two very different things. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's stalking the Wasteland, where they came from, what they're becoming, and why some mysteries are more terrifying than any Deathclaw encounter. This isn't just a creature list. It's a warning wrapped in lore, a confession from someone who's encountered them all and lived to document the horror. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. Now, let me tell you what I've seen. Let me tell you what's really out there, waiting in the dark places where the textbooks stop and the nightmares begin. I used to think I knew what monsters were. Growing up in Vault 76, we had textbooks, pictures, warnings about what the bombs had done to the world outside. Deathclaws, they said, super mutants, feral ghouls. The instructors made it sound so simple, like the Wasteland was just a bigger version of the shooting range, targets with different hit points. They never told us about the things that shouldn't exist, the things that crawled out of holes in reality itself. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what I've seen, what I've documented, what I'm leaving behind for anyone foolish enough to follow in my footsteps. Because out here in Appalachia, in the Mojave, in the ruins of what we used to call America, there are creatures that defy every law of nature and sanity. They call them cryptids, legends made flesh, and I've encountered every single one of them. This is my confession. My warning, my last will and testament to a world that stopped listening a long time ago. It started in the mountains of West Virginia, 3 months after Reclamation Day. I'd been tracking a supply cache near Point Pleasant when I first saw the eyes, red eyes, glowing like hot coals in the dark, watching me from the tree line. I froze. My Pip-Boy's Geiger counter was silent. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't giving off radiation. That should have been my first clue that the rules I'd learned in the vault meant nothing out here. The creature stepped into the moonlight, and I understood why the pre-war locals had built a museum to worship it. The Mothman stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body covered in dark fur or scales, impossible to tell which. Massive wings folded against its back, but those eyes, those burning crimson eyes that seemed to look straight through my skull and read every thought I'd ever had. It didn't move, didn't attack, just watched, studied, like it was deciding whether I was worth killing or worth keeping alive for some purpose I couldn't comprehend. I'd heard the stories by then. Everyone in Appalachia knew about the cult of the Mothman, found their churches, their shrines, their mad scribbling about wisdom and floods and the end of everything. I thought they were just another gang of raiders with a gimmick, but standing there, locked in that creature's gaze, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day the Overseer opened the vault door. True, primal, bone-deep terror, then it flew away. One moment it was there, the next it was gone in a blur of shadow and the sound of wings beating against the night air. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my rifle, but I was alive. It had chosen to let me live. That's when I made my first mistake. I thought the Mothman was special, unique, the one true cryptid of Appalachia. I had no idea I'd just met the first of many. No idea that the Wasteland was crawling with things that made the Mothman look almost mundane by comparison. The wise Mothman, I'd learn later, was different from its red-eyed cousins. Purple glow instead of crimson, non-hostile. The enlightened worshipped it, claimed it granted visions and blessings. Then there was the vengeful Mothman, aggressive and territorial. And during certain times of year, when the sky turned strange and the cultists gathered, other variants emerged from wherever these things hide when they're not terrorizing the living. But here's what kept me awake at night. The Mothman wasn't alone. It was connected to something else, something deeper. I found out about the interloper 3 weeks later. Lucky Hole Mine sits on a cliff overlooking Watoga, abandoned since before the war, or so I thought. When I descended into those depths, following rumors of lead deposits, I discovered the mine was anything but abandoned. The cult had been there. Some of them never left. The air changed as I went deeper, got colder, heavier, like the mine itself was breathing and I was walking down its throat. Shrines lined the tunnels, totems made of roots and bones, human bones, fresh ones and old ones, twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. And everywhere, scratched into the walls, carved into stone, the same phrases repeated over and over. His blood, his springs, his priestess, the firstborn of the wood. In the deepest chamber, past the underground chapel where they'd built their altar around a natural spring, I found it. The interloper. Some call it that. Others call it the firstborn of the wood. I call it proof that there are things in this world older and stranger than the bombs, older than America itself. It looked like a massive humanoid figure, easily 20 feet tall, its skin grey and bark-like, vine tendrils extended from where its head should be, writhing slowly, constantly, even though the creature seemed dormant. Dead maybe, or sleeping. I couldn't tell. Cultists knelt before it, arms raised in worship, blood-filled jars placed at its roots like offerings. The air hummed, not a sound exactly, but a vibration I felt in my teeth, in my skull, in places deeper than bone. I stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, staring, trying to understand. This thing wasn't created by radiation, wasn't an FEV experiment. It was something else, something that had been here long before the Great War, long before humans ever set foot in these mountains. And the Mothman, that creature of eyes and wings, was somehow connected to it. Servant or sibling or something worse, I couldn't say. Jeff Lane's holotapes were scattered throughout the mine. A cryptid enthusiast who'd worked at the Mothman Museum before the bombs fell. He'd been obsessed with finding the interloper, claimed it called to him in visions more real than reality itself. He'd abandoned his interest in the Mothman, dismissed it as mundane compared to the unknowable horror waiting in the deep places of the earth. The last recording was made at the mine's entrance. After that, silence. No body, no trace. Just another name added to the list of people who went looking for answers and found something that consumed them whole. I left the mine faster than I'd entered, and I didn't look back. Some things aren't meant to be understood. Some things can only drive you mad. But the Wasteland wasn't done teaching me lessons. The Wendigo found me near the Savage Divide, in a cave system that smelled like rotten copper. I'd heard them before. That sound, half human scream and half animal shriek, echoing through the darkness of Appalachia. But hearing them and seeing them are two very different experiences. And the textbooks in the vault hadn't prepared me for either. It moved on all fours, but its limbs were too long, too thin, joints bending in directions that shouldn't be possible. Grey mottled skin stretched over a skeletal frame, no eyes that I could see, just empty sockets weeping some kind of dark fluid. Its mouth, when it opened, revealed rows of needle-like teeth and a tongue that lashed out like a whip. Fast, impossibly fast. One moment it was at the far end of the cave, the next it was on top of me, claws raking across my armor, that scream splitting my eardrums. I got lucky. Flashbang grenade. It recoiled, gave me enough time to put 3 shotgun shells into its torso and collapse a limb. But even then, even crippled, it kept coming, kept screaming. The sound attracted others. I counted 4 more Wendigos emerging from side tunnels, drawn by the commotion. That's when I learned they hunt in packs, that they're somehow connected to the feral ghouls that plague the Wasteland, moving among them like shepherds guiding a flock of corpses. The notes I found later, scattered around the Wendigo cave, told me everything I didn't want to know. They used to be human, cannibals, raiders who'd turned to eating their own kind during the desperate days after the bombs fell. Morris Stevens, the progenitor Wendigo, had been the leader of a group called the Gormans, ate his own gang members, watched his partner with hungry eyes, before he finally transformed into the thing that now lurked in the deepest part of the cave. The transformation was connected to radiation, to desperation, to the unforgivable sin of consuming human flesh. But most of all, it was connected to something in Appalachia itself, some quality of this place that took human evil and twisted it into something worse than death. The Wendigo Colossus is where the nightmare achieves its final form. 3 heads instead of 1, 20 feet tall. Long, disproportionate limbs that can tear a deathclaw apart like wet paper. I've seen it happen. Earl Williams, they call the one in Monongah Mine. Trapped during the corporate lockdown in 2076, he and his co-workers turned to cannibalism to survive. Then the bombs fell. Then the transformation began. By the time Wastelanders started exploring Monongah, Earl had become something that shouldn't exist outside of fever dreams. Each of the Colossus's 3 heads can scream, and that scream does something to your mind. Uncontrollable fear, they call it. Your legs start moving before your brain catches up, running away from the thing, even when every tactical instinct says to stand and fight. Grown soldiers reduced to panicked children fleeing into the dark. And if you're unlucky enough to face one in a blast zone, they're accompanied by waves of regular Wendigos, a nightmare family reunion where you're the guest of honor. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to know if I'm the only one who feels this way. But Wendigos weren't the only things breeding in the dark places of Appalachia. Wasteland made sure of that. The snallygaster is what happens when scientists play God and lose control of their creations. Product of the forced evolutionary virus, the same bioweapon that created supermutants across the wasteland. But where supermutants retained some semblance of human form, the snallygaster went in a completely different direction. 6 limbs, dozens of eyes covering its back, each one tracking movement independently. An elongated tongue coated in corrosive acid that could melt through combat armor in seconds. The thing was built to hunt, built to kill, and it excelled at both. Wasteland's research logs from the Huntersville facility painted a picture of controlled chaos. They'd been working on the FEVS 06458 strain, trying to create the perfect soldier. Instead, they created the perfect monster. The snallygaster strain was their foundation, and from that cursed blueprint they spawned variations. Some escaped into the wild before the bombs fell. Others were released during the chaos of October 23, 2077. By the time Vault 76 opened, they'd established themselves as apex predators throughout the wasteland, claiming territory in the most radioactive zones where nothing else could survive. I encountered my first snallygaster near Toxic Larry's Meet and Go, appropriately enough. The irony wasn't lost on me. The creature had claimed the area around the abandoned shop, using the radiation as a natural barrier against most threats. I wasn't most threats. I was an idiot with a mission and not enough sense to turn back. It came at me from above, dropping from the ceiling of a collapsed building. All 6 limbs spread wide like some hellish spider. Those eyes, dozens of them, all focused on me, processing me from every angle. Nowhere to hide. Nowhere it couldn't see. The tongue shot out, caught my arm, and I felt my armor start to bubble and melt. The pain was immediate and absolute. I dropped my weapon, stumbled back, and only survived because I'd loaded up on Rad-X and Radaway before entering the area. The radiation that would have killed me in minutes was the only thing that gave me an edge. The snallygaster was comfortable there. I wasn't. And sometimes being uncomfortable makes you faster, more desperate, more willing to use every dirty trick in the book. Molotov cocktails. Lots of them. The snallygaster might have been resistant to radiation, but it burned like everything else. I left that encounter with second-degree chemical burns, a ruined set of armor, and a new understanding of just how badly the pre-war government had screwed future generations. They hadn't just created weapons of mass destruction, they'd created weapons of mass mutation, and those weapons were still killing people 2 centuries later. The Grafton Monster was born from the same nightmare factory. Another Wasteland special, another crime against nature wrapped in the justification of military necessity. But where the snallygaster at least had a head, the Grafton Monster was something else entirely. Headless. Just a massive hulking torso with oversized arms and legs, standing nearly 8 feet tall. Grey, leathery skin pulled tight over grotesque muscle. No discernible sensory organs, yet it could track you perfectly through the ruins of Grafton, hunting with a precision that suggested either echolocation or something worse. I first encountered it during what the locals called Grafton Day, some kind of pre-war tradition that responders tried to keep alive before they all died. Now it's just an excuse for wastelanders to gather and fight the monster that stalks their streets. It emerged from the Charleston train yard, moving with a strange, lumbering gait that somehow covered ground faster than seemed possible. No roar, no warning, just the sound of its feet hitting pavement and the wet, organic noise of those glands on its body preparing to spray corrosive slime in a wide arc. The research notes from Wasteland told a story I was getting tired of hearing. October 23, 2077, the day everything ended. Scientists working with the FEVS 06458 strain, the same one that spawned snallygasters. They'd tweaked the genome, trying to create something more stable. What they got was a creature that shattered its containment unit but remained oddly docile. By their standards anyway. The mutant was sedated and loaded onto a transport convoy. Then the bombs fell. The convoy never reached its destination. The Grafton Monster escaped into the wild, and Appalachia gained another nightmare to add to the collection. What makes it worse is how it kills. No teeth to bite with, no eyes to see the fear in your face. Just those glands ejecting globs of corrosive material that eat through metal and flesh alike. I watched it dissolve a Protectron in seconds, the robot's chassis melting like wax under a blowtorch. If you're lucky, you die fast. If you're not, well, I've seen what happens to people who survive the initial spray. The screaming lasts a long time. But at least the Grafton Monster was from Earth. At least it used to be human in some distant, unrecognizable way. The Flatwoods Monster didn't even have that excuse. I saw my first Flatwoods Monster on a moonless night near Harper's Ferry. Just a purple glow at first, floating about 4 feet off the ground. I thought it was another survivor with a weird light source. Maybe someone from the cult doing their usual bizarre rituals. Then it got closer, and I realized my mistake. The thing inside that purple aura wasn't human, wasn't even trying to pretend. It wore what looked like a protective suit, dark and form-fitting, with a clear helmet that revealed a face that was all wrong. Elongated skull, eyes that were too large and too bright. The way it moved, drifting rather than walking, made my skin crawl. It didn't attack immediately. Instead, it just hovered there, studying me the way a scientist studies a lab rat. Then I felt it, a pressure inside my skull. My Pip-Boy started fritzing out, the display showing garbage data. The turrets at my camp suddenly turned toward me, targeting reticles glowing red in the dark. Mind control. The thing could control minds, twist technology, make everything in the area turn against you. I ran. Not my proudest moment, but I'm alive to tell this story. And that's more than I can say for the Wastelanders whose corpses I found the next morning, killed by their own automated defenses. The Flatwoods Monster is what the government would have called an extraterrestrial, an alien, specifically, similar to the Zetans that have been abducting humans and mutilating cattle since before the Great War. But where most Zetans are small, grey-skinned things with big heads, the Flatwoods variant is taller, stranger, draped in that environmental suit like it can't survive in our atmosphere without protection. Pre-war locals had been seeing them since the 1950s, reporting strange lights and figures with glowing eyes. The cultists near Flatwoods tried to summon one on October 22nd, 2077. Brother Charles received a vision of floods to come. The cult gathered on rooftops to escape the destruction. The flood came in the form of nuclear fire, and most of them died, but they'd completed their summoning, and the Flatwoods Monsters remained, drifting through Appalachia like ghosts from another world. They only come out at night. During the day, they vanish. Where they go, what they do when they're not terrorizing the wasteland, nobody knows. I've tried tracking them, followed the energy signatures, found nothing but empty air and the lingering taste of ozone. It's like they phase out of reality itself, waiting for darkness to return before manifesting again. And every time I see that purple glow on the horizon, every time I hear that electronic hum they emit, I remember what it felt like to have something alien rummaging around inside my thoughts. The sheep squatch, at least, had the decency to be straightforward, big, aggressive, covered in shaggy white fur, with horns like a ram and a scream that could shatter glass. Calvin Van Loo dedicated his entire life to hunting one, built an elaborate taxidermy operation, collected evidence, became obsessed. I found his workshop, saw the madness scratched into his notes. He got too close to the truth, and the truth killed him. That seems to be a theme in Appalachia. The sheep squatch stalks the mountains and forests, a bipedal nightmare that moves like a gorilla but fights like a demon. During my first encounter, I thought I was tracking a regular sheep. Wrong. So incredibly wrong. The thing that emerged from the tree line stood 7 feet tall, covered in matted fur that smelled like death and wet dog. Those eyes, burning with an intelligence that suggested this wasn't just another mutated animal. It threw quills from its back like arrows, each one coated in venom that made my vision swim and my legs buckle. Then it charged, and I learned why even deathclaws give sheep squatch territory a wide berth. Free range events became my only reliable way to encounter them. Escort the Brahmin, wait for the inevitable attack. The sheep squatch always comes, always, like it's drawn to the sound of hooves and the smell of livestock. During one event, I watched it take down 3 armed wastelanders in under a minute, spinning, slashing, throwing those toxic quills with sniper precision. I survived because I hid in a drainage culvert and let someone else play hero. Not proud of that either, but again, I'm still breathing. The creature's origin remains a mystery. Pre-war locals reported sightings near Morgan's Ridge. Some claimed it was a mutated sheep. Others said it was something older, something that had always been in the mountains, just better at hiding before the bombs fell. The cult connections are there too. Different cult than the Mothman worshippers, but cut from the same mad cloth. Shrines, sacrifices, the belief that these creatures are gods or demons or something in between. Maybe they're right. Maybe we're the anomaly. And these things are what the world was always supposed to look like. Anglers are barely cryptids by the official definition, but they're on the list, and I've encountered enough of them to know they deserve mention. Mutated fusion of anglerfish and frogs, squatting in shallow water with their bioluminescent lures sticking above the surface like innocent plants waiting to be harvested. Lure weeds, the locals call them. Except some of those lure weeds have teeth and acid spit and a bad attitude. I lost count of how many times I reached for what I thought was a useful ingredient and nearly lost my hand to an angler's jaws. They nest in the mire, that poisonous swamp where nothing good lives and everything wants you dead. Gnarled shallows is crawling with them. 3 always spawn there, sitting in the murky water like landmines waiting for someone stupid enough to wade through without checking first. They're aggressive, spitting flaming projectiles at long range, using their claws up close if you're dumb enough to engage in melee. Energy weapons are nearly useless against them. Something about their biology shrugs off laser fire and plasma bolts. Ballistic weapons and good old-fashioned violence are the only language they understand. I've got scars from angler encounters, chemical burns from their spit, deep gouges where their claws found gaps in my armor. But I'm still here, still documenting, still trying to make sense of a world that stopped making sense 2 centuries ago. If you've ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I'll be reading them. The mega sloth is proof that not every cryptid wants to murder you on sight. Gentle giants, the Vault-Tec promotional materials called them, back when someone still cared about maintaining the lie. Descendants of pre-war sloths that were imported as exotic pets before the bombs fell. Slow, calm, spending their days eating leaves and hanging from trees sturdy enough to support their massive bulk. Their thick fur hosts entire ecosystems, mushrooms and insects and plants growing on their backs in a symbiotic relationship that would be beautiful if it wasn't so sad. I encountered my first megasloth southeast of the Southern Belle Motel, dangling from a tree like a monstrous ornament. It watched me with those slow, sad eyes, chewing leaves, utterly unconcerned with my presence. I could have killed it. Should have, maybe. The mushrooms growing on its back are valuable, can be cooked into a soup that enhances critical hit damage. But something stopped me. Maybe it was those eyes. Maybe it was the way it moved so slowly, so peacefully, like it remembered a world before violence became the only language anyone spoke. I walked away, let it live. There's enough death in the wasteland without me adding to the body count unnecessarily. They're still dangerous if provoked. Those claws aren't just for climbing. That bulk isn't just for show. Attacking a megasloth is like attacking a furry bulldozer. But they don't start fights. They just want to be left alone, to eat their leaves and sleep in their trees and pretend the world didn't end. I respect that. Sometimes I want the same thing. The beast of Beckley is barely a cryptid, just an albino wolf. But the pre-war locals feared it enough to give it a name, and that fear carried through to the post-war world. Raymond Priblo tried to hunt it. Janelle Priblo tried to trap it. Both died for their efforts, torn apart by something that looked like a normal predator, but killed with unusual intelligence and ferocity. I faced it during the Van Lowe questline, following Calvin's obsessive documentation to its inevitable conclusion. The beast was fast, vicious. It fought like it understood tactics, using its pack to flank and disorient before going for the kill. But in the end, it was just a wolf. Deadly, yes, a cryptid by technicality. But after facing the interloper and the Wendigo Colossus and creatures from beyond the stars, a white wolf felt almost quaint. The Blue Devil changed that perspective. Made me realize that size isn't everything. That sometimes the most dangerous cryptids are the ones that look almost normal until they show you what they really are. I encountered it during a Blue Ridge caravan escort mission, protecting Brahmin at the Middle Mountain pit stop. Night fell, the moon turned strange, and then I heard it. That howl, starting low and rising to something that sounded almost human, interlaced with a snarl that definitely wasn't. The Blue Devil stood on 2 legs, towering above the tree line. Long muzzle filled with needle-like teeth, hooked claws that could gut a death claw. Its fur had a blue-grey tint that seemed to absorb moonlight rather than reflect it. But the worst part was the howl. When it opened that mouth and sang its horrible song, something happened in my brain. Uncontrollable fear, same as the Wendigo Colossus. My character turned and ran without my input, legs pumping, heart hammering, every instinct screaming to get away from that thing. The Blue Devil hunted through the night, picking off caravan members one by one, using terror as a weapon more effective than any claw or tooth. Aries and Clyde, the cryptid hunters from the Blue Ridge Caravan Company, have been tracking these things for years. Their notes suggest the Blue Devil used to be dogs, bred for racing before the war, then for fighting, then the bombs fell, and something in Appalachia's particular brand of radiation twisted them into monsters. They reproduce fast, hunt in packs when there's enough of them, and they're spreading, following the trade routes, expanding their territory beyond the mountains. That should terrify everyone. It certainly terrifies me. The Ogwa is the newest addition to my nightmare collection. Massive turtle-like creature, easily the height of 5 men, with a hooked beak like a snapping turtle, and rocky spines covering its shell, deep-set eyes that track movement with predatory focus. It can retreat into its shell, making itself invulnerable to damage for short periods. Timing your attacks becomes crucial. Wait for it to emerge. Strike hard. Retreat before it can counter. Repeat until either it dies or you do. The Mothman cultists have an obsession with the Ogwa. They call it ancient. Claim its blood holds divine secrets and the ability to see into the past. During the Beasts of Burden event, I watched them try to sacrifice one to their moth god. The Ogwa did not go quietly. It killed 3 cultists before I even arrived, crushed them under its bulk like they were insects. The cultists kept chanting, kept trying, religious fervor outweighing self-preservation instinct. I intervened, not to save the cultists, but to stop whatever ritual they thought would bring them closer to enlightenment. The Ogwa escaped. The cultists didn't, and I added another encounter to my growing list of things I wish I could forget. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from the Wasteland, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. But Appalachia isn't the only place where legends became real. The Mojave had its own nightmares, and some of them made everything I'd seen in West Virginia look tame by comparison. The Sierra Madre Casino taught me that some prisons don't have walls. Some prisons are made of toxic clouds and greed and the ghosts of people who refuse to die. I'd heard the legends, the grand opening that never happened, Frederick Sinclair's obsession with a woman named Vera, the promise of treasure beyond imagining, locked behind the Sierra Madre's doors for 2 centuries. What I didn't hear, what nobody told me, was about the ghost people, the locals, the inhabitants, whatever you want to call the things that shuffle through the villa's streets wearing hazmat suits fused to their rotting flesh. They used to be construction workers, honest people building Sinclair's dream. Then big MT scientists, those same mad bastards responsible for so many of the Wasteland's horrors, used the villa as a testing ground. Experimental chemicals leaked from the ventilation system, absorbed through the skin, caused severe lung and tissue damage. The workers couldn't breathe, couldn't escape, so Big MT sent them prototype chemical suits to protect them. Except the suits didn't protect anything. They became part of the workers, sealed them inside as the cloud, that toxic green vapor unique to the Sierra Madre, changed them into something no longer human. My first encounter with a ghost person happened in the Puesta del Sol district. I heard it before I saw it, that wet, gasping sound, like someone breathing through a collapsed lung. The figure that emerged from the cloud moved wrong, lurching, leaping, avoiding my aim with an intelligence that suggested whatever was inside that suit still remembered how to think. It came at me with a knife made from scavenged metal, silent except for that horrible breathing. I put 3 bullets in its chest. It went down. I moved to loot the corpse. Then it got back up. That's when I learned the rules. Ghost people don't stay dead. Not unless you disintegrate them, dismember them, or find some other way to ensure the body can't function. Just killing them isn't enough. They heal, regenerate, get back up and continue hunting you through the toxic streets. My knife became more valuable than my gun, crippling limbs, severing connections, making sure they stayed down. The whole time, that cloud pressed in from all sides, eating through my hazmat suit, poisoning me slowly, promising death if I stayed too long in any one place. Their reverence for the holographic ghosts that haunt the villa's streets remains unexplained. I'd watch them stand before the holograms, heads tilted like worshippers before gods. The holograms would patrol their programmed routes, and the ghost people would follow, never attacking, never interfering, just watching, learning, remembering. I don't know. Maybe some part of them recalls what it was like to be human, to be solid, to cast a shadow that meant something. Or maybe they just recognize other prisoners trapped in the same hell, playing out the same loops for eternity. The ghost trappers were worse, larger, no hoods on their suits, equipped with bear trap fists that could snap bone and tear armor. They set traps throughout the villa, turned the entire district into a killing field. Tripwires, pressure plates, bear traps hidden under debris. I lost track of how many times I heard that metallic snap, felt steel teeth bite into my leg, looked up to see a ghost trapper lumbering toward me while I struggled to pry myself free. They're the ones who made sure nobody escapes the Sierra Madre. They're the wardens of a prison nobody remembers building. I survived the villa. Barely. Left with radiation poisoning, trauma, and a new understanding that the cruelest cryptids aren't the ones mutated by bombs or viruses. They're the ones created by human greed and corporate negligence. The ghost people didn't choose to become monsters. They were made into monsters by people who saw them as acceptable test subjects. That's worse than any Wendigo transformation. At least the Wendigos made a choice, however horrible. The workers at the Sierra Madre never got that option, but the ghost people weren't the Mojave's worst nightmare. That honor belongs to something that's still spreading, still breeding, still waiting underground to emerge when the sun finally burns out. The tunnelers are the end of everything. Not metaphorically, not eventually, soon, within years if Ulysses was right, and Ulysses was right about most things. I encountered my first tunneler in the Divide, that radioactive scar torn across the Mojave, where the courier's delivery detonated underground nuclear silos and split the earth open. The creature came from below, bursting through packed sand like it was water. Reptilian humanoid, dark, scaly skin, enormous bioluminescent eyes adapted for life in absolute darkness, mouth filled with teeth that could tear through combat armor, and fast, so incredibly, impossibly fast. They used to be human. The inhabitants of Hopeville who fled underground when the bombs fell. 2 centuries of mutation, radiation, and FEV exposure twisted them into something no longer recognizable. They evolved for their environment, lost pigmentation, developed enhanced senses, became quadrupedal hunters that lived and bred beneath the sands, completely unaware of the surface world. Then the courier triggered those warheads. The explosions and earthquakes split open the ground, released the tunnelers into a world of light and noise and prey that had never seen them coming. During my time in the Divide, I learned their weaknesses: bright lights, loud noises. Flashbangs would send them fleeing, scrambling back underground in a panic. Flare guns would set them on fire, their oversensitive eyes unable to process the sudden illumination. But those were temporary solutions, because Ulysses warned me and I believed him. The tunnelers reproduce quickly, hunt in massive packs. They can tear apart deathclaws, the apex predators of the Wasteland, through sheer numbers and coordinated attacks. And they're building networks of tunnels beneath the Mojave, expanding their territory, getting closer to established settlements. Death will come from below, that's what Ulysses said. Not a quick death like the bombs, a slower death, one where settlements wake up to find tunnelers emerging from the ground beneath their feet, where farms collapse into sinkholes that lead to nests full of things that should never have existed, where the surface world slowly becomes uninhabitable as the underground world claims it piece by piece. I found the tunneler queen in the cave of the Abaddon, 50% larger than a normal tunneler, more aggressive, more intelligent. I killed her, but there are others. There are always others. And each one is breeding more, creating colonies that spread through the earth like cancer through a body. The Mojave has maybe years before the tunnelers start emerging in force, maybe less. The Brotherhood might survive with their armored bunkers. The NCR might hold major settlements with enough firepower and lights. Everyone else, everyone in small towns, isolated farms, traveling caravans, they're dead. They just don't know it yet. That should have been the end of my cryptid encounters, the final entry in my journal of horrors. But Appalachia kept evolving, kept spawning new nightmares. The Jersey Devil was supposed to be a myth within a myth, a cryptid from New Jersey folklore, reported in the Pine Barrens for centuries. Dragon-like, terrible, the stuff of campfire stories. Then Fallout 76. Wastelanders started traveling to Atlantic City, and the stories became real. Again, I haven't faced it yet, can't. The Jersey Devil only appears during the Sins of the Father questline, deep in Atlantic City territory. But I've heard the reports, seen the evidence, a dragon-like mutated creature that makes the sheepsquatch look tame. Russo and Jean, local gangsters, discovered something unique about the Jersey Devil. Its blood. They harvested it, turned it into a drug called devil's blood. Highly addictive, incredibly rare, prohibitively expensive. A narcotic for high rollers made from the literal blood of a cryptid that might be the most dangerous thing in the entire wasteland. The creature is reclusive, rarely venturing near Atlantic City itself. But when it does appear, when it's cornered or threatened, it fights with the fury of something that knows it's one of the last of its kind. The lore says it's connected to Appalachia's strange supernatural ecosystem, part of the same web that includes the Mothman and the interloper and all the other things that shouldn't exist. Maybe it escaped from the Pine Barrens after the bombs fell. Maybe radiation created it from nothing. Maybe it was always there, waiting for the world to fall apart enough that its existence didn't seem so impossible anymore. I've added it to my list. Another cryptid I'll probably encounter. Another thing that will try to kill me. Another entry in this confession that nobody will believe even though every word is true. There are more. I know there are more. The Lake Mead monster, spotted after a B-29 bomber was raised from the water. The Loch Ness monster, mentioned in passing by travelers. The jackalopes, novelty items that the stupid and gullible still think are real. The chupacabra that turned out to be invisible nightkin, killing Brahmin in Novak. Every region has its legends. Every wasteland has its monsters. And every day, I wonder what new horror evolution and radiation will spawn next. The smiling man appeared to me 3 weeks ago. Just appeared. Random encounter on a road I've traveled 100 times. He stood there in his antiquated suit, grinning wider than should be physically possible. Indrid Cold, that's what he called himself. Said he was returning to Appalachia. Said much had changed, spoke in riddles and rhymes that made my head hurt. I tried to shoot him. Combat instinct. See something wrong, eliminate the threat. The bullets passed through him like he wasn't there. He disappeared in a burst of shadow, identical to a fleeing Mothman. Just gone. Left me standing there with an empty magazine and more questions than answers. The smiling man is connected to the Mothman, connected to the broader web of supernatural events plaguing Appalachia. But he's not a cryptid in the traditional sense. He's something else. A messenger, a prophet, a joke played by forces beyond human comprehension. Stephen Scarberry, a Mothman cultist, said the smiling man had a cold personality, but couldn't shake his smile. Said they were looking for similar things. What things? What could a cultist seeking enlightenment and an impossible man seeking the unseekable possibly have in common? I don't know. And the not knowing is worse than any Deathclaw encounter. Worse than any Wendigo scream. Because it means there are layers to this nightmare that I haven't even begun to comprehend. That's the real horror of cryptids. Not that they exist. We've seen enough mutations and monsters to accept that radiation and viruses can create almost anything. The real horror is the ones that can't be explained by science. The interloper, the smiling man, the connection between the Mothman and forces older than America itself. The sense that underneath the wasteland surface chaos, there's a pattern, a purpose, something vast and ancient and utterly indifferent to human suffering. I've documented 15 major cryptids, encountered dozens more if you count variants and subspecies. I've been burned, poisoned, irradiated, infected, torn apart and put back together. I've seen things that made me question reality itself. And through it all, one truth became clear. We didn't inherit the wasteland. The cryptids did. They were here before us, hidden in folklore and legend. The bombs just gave them permission to stop hiding. And now, 2 centuries after the Great War, they're still evolving, still spreading, still claiming territory that used to belong to humanity. The tunnelers will emerge from below. The ghost people will spread beyond the Sierra Madre if the cloud ever escapes containment. The Wendigos will multiply as desperate survivors turn to cannibalism. The FEV experiments will keep mutating, keep creating new variants. The aliens will continue their inscrutable observations and abductions, and through it all, the interloper will wait in the dark, patient and eternal, while the Mothman watches with those burning red eyes, and the smiling man walks roads that shouldn't exist. This is my testament, my warning, my last will to anyone who finds these recordings after I'm gone. The wasteland is more than radiation and raiders. It's more than super mutants and deathclaws. It's a place where the barriers between possible and impossible have broken down completely, where legends walk, where nightmares breed, where cryptids have become the dominant species, and humanity is just another prey animal trying to survive one more day. I used to think I knew what monsters were. I was wrong. Monsters are just animals trying to survive in a world that makes no sense. The real monsters are the forces that created this world, the governments that built the bombs, the corporations that twisted nature into weapons, the cults that worship the results and call it divine. And me, I'm a monster too, because I've killed dozens of these creatures, documented their existence, catalogued their weaknesses, turned them into data points and tactical assessments. I've done to them what the pre-war scientists did to the ghost people and the tunnelers and everything else. Observed, recorded, justified. The violence is necessary for survival. Maybe that's the final cryptid, the most dangerous one. Humanity itself, unable to learn, unable to change, still playing with forces it doesn't understand, still creating nightmares for future generations to inherit. If you're hearing this, if you've made it to the end, then you know the truth. Every cryptid in Fallout, every single one, their origins, their territories, their kills, what they are, what they were, what they're becoming. The Wasteland is full of mysteries. I've solved some of them. The rest will solve themselves, probably by killing everyone who asks too many questions. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the warning. They're real, all of them. Every legend, every story told around campfires, every shadow that moves wrong, every sound that shouldn't exist. They're real, and they're not going away.